Today we're going to be starting a perspective unit. Basically, what perspective is your point of view. So when we talk about it in regards to art, we're talking about how you take a two-dimensional object, so a square, and you turn it into a three-dimensional object, a cube. Architects will use this to plan out what a building will look like beforehand. It kind of gives you a lifelike how something would look like in a realistic way, that is on a two-dimensional surface. So the main parts to perspective right here, you're going to copy this down in your sketchbook. So 1-point perspective means there's one vanishing point. There's one dot where everything is going to vanish or disappear to. This is situated on the horizon line. The horizon line is when the sky meets the ground. So if you've ever seen the sunset or sunrise, this is that line where your sun or moon is going to disappear behind. This is why they originally thought the world was flat. And then we have this thing called the orthogonal line. This is the object that gives the item depth. Okay, so for instance, if you're going to stand in between two railroad tracks and you look down that railroad track, those railroad tracks are parallel, which means they never intersect. They're the same equal distance all the way through, but this optical illusion happens where it converges to a point. Okay, this is your vanishing point right here, and that happens on the horizon line. These diagonal lines, which were originally your railroad tracks, would be the orthogonal lines, and this is you at the X. So please copy this down in your sketchbook, and then we're going to work on this worksheet together. I have some basic steps for perspective. This can also be glued down on the same page. Step 1, connect all corners and edges to the vanishing point. So every corner, every edge is going to go back to that vanishing point. One dot and one dot only. Step 2, connect all orthogonal lines and make the parallel lines. Step 3, erase all extra orthogonal lines. And my exception is if the line goes directly through that corner, you do not draw it. That means it's behind the object. And that'll make more sense when we go to do an example here. So when we look here at this example, I'm going to start with the square. From here on out, you're going to use a ruler for every single line you draw. I like to think of this here, my vanishing point, as kind of like a flashlight or a spotlight. If I'm shining a light over on my square, I will not see this edge up here. Light will not touch up here. I will also not see this side here. Light's not going to touch here. I will see this side, and I will see this side. This is kind of like a check, and it'll allow me to understand what sides I'm going to be drawing. So it says, step 1, connect all corners and edges to the vanishing point. I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to match up this bottom left-hand corner to the vanishing point. Please follow along and do this with me. The next one is I'm going to do the bottom right-hand corner. I match it up to that dot, and I draw it back. I then go to the top right-hand corner. I match it up. I draw it back. And then I go to my top left-hand corner. When I match this one up, it goes directly through that corner. That's my exception. So I will not be drawing this corner back. This means it's behind the object. I will not see that one. So I'm just going to have my bottom 3 lines. These are the lines that I checked with my spotlight, and those are the sides I will see. Step 2 is to connect all orthogonal lines and make the parallels. These are my orthogonal lines. So what I'm going to do here is take my ruler, match it up to this line. Parallel lines are 2 lines that are never going to intersect, equal distance apart all the way through. And I'm going to match it up, drag it out, and connect those 2 orthogonal lines together. This line and this line are both parallel to one another. They're never going to intersect. I rotate my ruler. I match up this bottom line here. I'm going to trace over top of it so you see that line. I then am going to drag it out, and I'm going to connect it. These 2 orthogonal lines together, but I'm going to meet up with that corner I just made. So this line and this line are parallel. My final step is I'm going to go through here and erase. So this is my eraser mark. I'm going to erase these extra lines here. this corner here should mimic this corner here. So this is the front, the side, and the bottom. So that is how you take a square and you make it into a cube. The next step is we're going to go to our next object. My spotlight is just going to change direction so it goes this way. So I will not see the top of my trapezoid, and I will not see this far side of my trapezoid. My light will touch here and will touch here. Step one is I'm going to connect all corners and edges to the vanishing point. I'm going to start with my top corner here. I match it up. I connect it back. I go to my next corner. I match it up. I connect it back. This one I match it up. I connect it back. I can double check this corner up here to see if I would see it or not. I'm not going to see it because it goes directly through that corner. So I will not see this top corner up here. The trapezoid gets tricky because step two is to make my parallel lines. I need to match up the angle of this trapezoid here at an angle, drag it out, and it needs to be the same angle as this line here. So this line and this line are both parallel. I rotate my ruler. I match up this line here, the bottom, it's going straight across, like so. I drag it out, I match it up with that other corner I just made, and I make a parallel line. This line and this line are both parallel. My final step is to erase these lines here. The final one we're going to do is the triangle. Same vanishing point, it's just my spotlight's going down now. I will not see this side here. Light is not going to touch over here. I will not see over here. Light will not touch here. I'm just going to have one side. So I take my bottom left-hand corner, I match it up, I take it back, I match up my top corner here, I match it up, I take it back. Step two, I'm going to make parallel lines. I match up the angle of that triangle, I drag it out, and I connect it. Step three, I erase. Now, if my vanishing point was over here, I would see this side of the triangle and not this one. So depending on where your vanishing point is, it determines where those shadows go. Notice all the shadows are converging into the center here. So this is how you take basic shapes and you put it into one-point perspective.